All right, hello everyone. My name is Disc, and in this video we have another viewer lesson coming to us from Metafy. It is the same priest as last time, named Drosu. Keep an eye out for another video review series from another student I have coming up. I think these video reviews, which I offer on Metafy, are one of the better ways you can kind of learn WoW. So a lot of these lecture style videos I make, or any lecture video lessons, I think they serve a great purpose, but honestly, until I see your gameplay, it's really hard to know where you're going to be finding like the most loss. So I think these are really valuable, especially when you can do more than one. But so since last video, I think we've had at least a week of time. Maybe it was 10 days, I forget. But we've seen a lot of improvement already in Drosu, but we've also seen a lot of the same problems. So let's look at the damage here first. So this is a pretty good ratio of what we want to see, at least for the Entropic Rift and Wraith to be on first and second. A couple things, though, I can kind of foresee by looking at this. These numbers, the 80 mil, 70 mil, these should be higher. So although our ratio is correct, I think we're having loss on these separately. So this could be pointing to we're missing our second penance into the Rift, which is something I see quite a bit. We're also, a lot of times we're sending a second Rift, that 2-to-1 ratio, but we're not sending it as soon as it's available. So we're having some loss on that. And with our Torments, I think very consistently I'm seeing numbers in the 6 range, but just doing our best to kind of keep that average around 6, aiming for above 6. And then here's something where this is kind of pointing to the same issue. So we're not getting our second penance into the Rift. I think sometimes we're also not casting a Radiance during the Rift, which is, I'm kind of deducing that because our Dark Reprimand is below the Void Blast. Dark Reprimand is much stronger of a spell. Pretty easily, we should see it on top of the Void Blast. So a couple things I do with my Radiance is I'll cast it when combat ends to go ahead and bank that proc. And then 9 times out of 10, you want to cast it during the Rift. And I think you're getting better at that, but not perfect. So a rule of thumb is I might aim for 3 of my Void Blasts. That's for the extension. Then work in the Radiance, which is all the time we need for the second penance. I think we have some examples in here where you get a little Void Blast happy. I would only do 3 and then the Radiance. I think sometimes you're doing 5, then the Radiance. And what happens is your penance subsequently is sitting there available. So we don't want to do too many blasts because we're going to have downtime on the penance. But let me do this really quickly. I like to do this before my videos. It's just a quick skim of your cooldowns. And we've seen a lot of improvement from your last video. And also for the record, for some reason, I recorded half of this one without audio again. So this is a redo, but hopefully for your sake, that gives you a little bit better of an advantage because I'm even more familiar with the video. I did preview it all the way through once, but now I've previewed it 1.5 times. So we're just going to go with it. So when it comes to cooldown usage, and this is something I think that's already been addressed, you don't have on almost any timers for your bosses. Let me take that back. I think half your bosses in here didn't have the appropriate timers. Although you're getting your rotation much better now, it doesn't really mean much if it's not in the right time. And I think that's your next biggest hurdle, is learning the timings. So I think I support a clean UI, but I think from your position, you've kind of overplucked. I think you've turned off some things, not realizing their importance. And I think it's because you're not doing 15s yet. So a lot of these mechanics, which you're able to get through, just kind of like randomly throwing your spells, there's going to be a turning point where that's not going to work for you anymore. And you're going to really have to be more familiar with these timings. Because at least on boss 2, we'll cover that when we get there, but your timings were not on. Boss 1, also your timings were not right. We'll talk about that when we get there. I think I only saw, let me do a skim. You're not getting much play of Barrier or Rapture. I'm looking at those two first. So tracking the right timers on bosses will help you with those. So I saw 1 Barrier and 1 Rapture. So we could be playing more of those. Consequently, we could be playing more Pain Sups. So Rapture and Pain Sup are correlated. I think you're getting good use of Desperate Prayer, but it doesn't look like you played Fade but twice or 3 times. So Fade we need to play anytime there's damage. So there's no global here. In practice, it shouldn't get in the way of your casting. We just have to start building the muscle memory of playing it. And I know like one of your positions is there's some things you're just shelving for later. I don't think that's generally the best way to approach learning a subject. Even though you don't think you're there yet, and even though these are just 8s, this is your time to start practicing these things, even if they're only 10% maximized. Start practicing them now. Start that journey now rather than waiting until later. That also goes for your PI. This is something we've already talked about, but you have your PI, how do I say it? It's dependent on having a focus macro. You have it, you're kind of like cutting a corner here. I think you've already made this correction, but just add it into your click to cast system. Treat it like a normal spell so that you can give it to like whomever you need to. A lot of times, what if your focus is dead? I mean, you just need ways to be able to cast this standard. And I think the first step, like if I were to like give you a lesson plan here for maximizing PI, first step is just make sure it's played always. Never sit on it. And about half this dungeon, you didn't play PI at all. And then if you wanted to expand on that practice, once you get full uptime on PI, start then trying to time it with your team. So just 100% play of PI is step 1. And then let's see, food for thought here with your action buttons. I really like this change. We're in a much better direction here. Our penance and death are tied in with our totem frames. Very, very important. Food for thought. This area, I would call it maybe your combat HUD. Very, very important for monitoring your cooldowns. So Fortitude and Flash Heal don't have a cooldown. So I think it might be better, especially since you're not getting good use of your defensives yet. Put your defensives in these 2 spots. Put something else here that has a cooldown. The intention of this area is for cooldowns, and those don't have a cooldown. So food for thought on that. Yeah, I think let's just go ahead and play the video. Oh, I think I did want to say something about talents. I can't believe I recorded half of this without audio again. Oh my gosh. You think I'd learn? Okay, so the only thing I want to say here is you don't need Mass Dispel. This is not a dungeon that requires any Mass Dispelling. It doesn't really require any dispelling at all. So this is wasted. I'd much rather see this in Throws of Pain. You could do Tithe Evasion, play with range if you wanted to, take 1 in Crystalline Reflection. It's just wasted. And it might seem like it's negligible, but 1 entire wasted talent point I think is huge. So consider that when you go into dungeons that don't need Mass Dispel, don't waste that point. Then your discipline side, I approve. So yeah, rules of thumb. Some areas where I think we fell kind of in just to the wrong rhythm, but I also think partly to blame is it wasn't something you fully understood yet. Excuse the dog. But we always want to start a pull with the pet and rift and end a pull with just the rift. And you fell into a scenario a couple of times, more than a couple of times, where on open you just did the rift and you lost all your value on the pet. Pet is the most important thing in our book. We want it at the start of any given pull so that on the latter half of a pull, that's its time to reset to prepare it for the start of the next pull. And then also rule of thumb, always radiance during the rift. Okay, let's see how this goes. Try number 2. Okay, so we found the dragon. Your hunter queued PI, or queued coordinated assault. That would be your PI. Okay, we had a lot of loss there, PI aside. So on an 8, it might not be good encouragement to have you just eat that attack, but on an 8 you can. So especially since our rift was out, our pet was out, it was very important for us to hit our rotation. I think you also missed your second penance into the rift. What I would have done maybe is just hit both my defensives and eat it. It's not going to kill you at this level. It will kill you in other levels, so, you know, take that with a grain of salt. But I would have done Desperate Prayer Fade, just eaten the attack to make sure I hit my spells, because we had a lot of loss on Torments. We had loss on the Rift. But that was good, though. You started the pull with the pet, and now you're ending the pull with just the Rift. Okay, so I think we're set good for next pull. We have the pet and Rift up. And then also one thing I'm thinking here is potentially not a good play of Desperate Prayer and Fade there. You weren't going to die. Yeah, I wouldn't have used those there. I would have maybe just shielded myself and ran through. But one thing I'm thinking in this whole area is play all of my spells. So I'm thinking 1 barrier, I'm thinking 1 or 2 pain sups, and a rapture. I want to clear all of those spells in this area before the flyaway. Two dots out of 3 is a little bit of a waste. I would have only dotted 1 of 3. Penance will do the rest. Let's see how many torments you get here. Okay, you got your second penance for the Rift. And you got 5 torments. I'll take it. So in this scenario, excuse me, what I would do is we don't want a total gap. Sorry, I hit my vape. We don't want, oh my God, we don't want a total gap in output. So this is a little too far away, 18 seconds, for me to want to sit, oh my God, sit on the Rift. So what I would do, just to add a little bit of coverage, is go ahead and Rift and then catch the 2 up later. Okay, so that looks like what you're trying to do. You're trying to get a Rift out. Okay, but let's see. We are set for next pull. So pull of 6, I would dot at least 2 or 3. And then go into the pet window. Let's see what you do. 1 dot. So I would say that's not enough dots. I would do at least 1 more.
Do you see a stone to call forth the darkness?
Okay, 6 torments with a couple executes. That's good. Okay, and I think there were a couple things here I wanted to say too. So it's kind of a bait sometimes to send your ones here. I think it's a bait because you can kind of guarantee everyone else is going to do that. This pull does not have much health, even though it's a big pull. I almost never send my ones here because I think it's a bait. So I'll send a couple of 2s. And I think you sent just 1. Okay. So personally, I like sending more 2s on the bridge. It is a healthier pull. Okay, we have 2 1s left. Oh, you sent a 1 here. They were essentially dead. I wouldn't have sent a 1 there. 1 more 1. Yeah, and you send your last 1 here. These guys are dead too. So much more importantly are these guys. They're full health. This is going to take a lot of time to kill. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So if you can hit them a little harder, it will speed up the dungeon. Yeah, I think it's a common bait to send all your 1s on the first group there. Oh, and this is where I remembered. So we have Prayer of Mending in our book. I don't see it on your bars at all. So Prayer of Mending could go in one of these spots. I also think I said it in Discord earlier. Star is much more frequent, and being that it's a combat spell, I would group it up here. Dispel isn't as frequently used, at least especially in this dungeon. There aren't any. So I would move the Divine Star up there. Okay, a defensive penance there was a little hard to see because we really needed dot spread. It would have been better going into an enemy. Defensive penance are very collapse mist, very important. Definitely a time and place. I don't think maybe it was necessarily wrong, but in a pretty big pull like that where you have 0 dot spread, I would have preferred dotting an enemy. Okay, so all I'm thinking right now really is my pet's not ready. Really want him back. And this boss, pretty standard. We open with Pet and Rift and then go to Just Rift. Pet and Rift, Just Rift. You can combo in Vampiric Embrace as needed. Comboing Vampiric Embrace with the half rotation I think is a pretty good idea. Working in barriers on the roars, working in raptures as needed. Watching the bleeds on tank. And then, so since this is the 3rd time I've watched this, you have a little bit of a problem with your timing here. And may it be just the Rift, or may it be the Pet and the Rift, you want it cast after the roar hits. And what happens is if you cast it after the roar, the collapse of the Rift will cover the rock spike. And we have a little disconnect here with our play of spells. Your first one is good, but then you fall off.
4, 2, 1. AoE.
Okay, here's the roar, here's the pet. So your first one is in good time. Now all I want to see is a radiance worked in. So you're working in the radiance, but this is now the 2nd time I've seen it in this dungeon. Let me make a point of this. So you cast 5 Void Blasts in a row. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm also looking at the penance. 5. So you cast 5, then the radiance. Your penance is already ready. So if you cast 3 plus a radiance, you would have less loss on this. So the penance, you're sitting on it essentially for about a second, which is not good. So less Void Blasts. Void Blast plus a radiance equals the cooldown of penance. Oh yeah, and then what happens too, you're over feathering. I know that's a comment I made to you already. You don't need a feather here. It's a wasted global because what I'm looking at is instead of feathering, what you should be doing is again, the 2nd penance while your rift is still out because we're counting on that collapse to recover from the rock spike. And you can cast penance while moving. You can cast death while moving. So the better thing to do here is just kind of slowly walk out. You don't need a speed boost because I think you totally missed the 2nd penance into the rift. Yeah, totally missed. Okay, so anticipating this next one here, we did a full rotation first. This is going to be just a half rotation. I would like to see a Mind Blast with Vampiric Embrace after the roar. And let's see what happens.
5.
Mind Blast. So you're casting it about 5+ seconds early, which what's going to happen is that's going to throw you off later too.
4.
So you want the Mind Blast after the roar.
1.
And like what I would do, so he's casting his roar, I would precast my Radiance on top of it. So the precast of Radiance will recover quick health. And then you're totally backloading your Rift after the roar, which will cover the rock spike. So let's see here. What's going to happen is you're going to not have anything to recover the rock spike from. So your collapse is done. No more healing to give. And you're not going to have anything to recover this health. And so what you do now, I think you reach for other spells to recover what you missed the first time, but then that throws you off in the future. And then this is something that, again, you can get by now, but it won't float in the future because I think what you're about to do is cast your Pet and Rift. Yeah, so Pet and Rift are just now cast. It should be done in 8 seconds from now. So you're casting it prematurely. It will cover for the roar, but you need this major cooldown to cover for both.
A stone. 5. Call 4. 4. 3. 2. 1.
You worked in your Radiance. I think you had a few too many Void Blasts, but you had 6 Torments for the win. And it's just when it comes to your timings, I fully believe. I don't know which came first, but they either design dungeons based off our spells, or maybe they design our spells based off dungeons. I don't know, but it is a perfect match for the time, and it's all about the timing as a healer. Very, very important that now that we have the bulk of the understanding of the rotation, that we focus on the timing. And then also arguably, this is getting nitpicky, but so we have one more attack to cover. What am I looking for? Yeah, we have one more attack to cover for, but he's going to die.
A stone. 5 call full. 4 block. 3.
He's going to die
2. 1.
way prematurely, and you're not going to be able to get this CDR on your pet. Yeah, you didn't get the CDR on the pet because he died. I would have maybe just sent a rift thinking about the next pull. So we kind of always have to be thinking ahead. And again, we want a pet at the start of a pull, and you're not going to have it. So I think this is where we snowball, because you send just a rift with the pet on the latter half, which means the next pull also doesn't have a pet on the start. And you dotted 1 of 4. Probably not the worst thing in the world, but maybe dot 2. Okay, here goes your pet death. Rift penance. Oh, that too. So I would never cast a radiance like that. Sometimes you just have to, so I'm not really going to fault you for it. But you want your torments out of the way first. So pet death, rift, penance, then you're free. So what you did is pet death, rift, radiance, penance. And what happens is it's going to be harder now for you to get your 2 penance. So mind blast, radiant penance. It would have been better to do the radiance after the penance. But we did get 6 torments. But the problem here now, so 6 torments is good, but you have no pet for the next pull. And this is like the snowball. So we want a pet now, which is why we have to cast pets on the front half of pulls, not the latter. Yep, you fell into the trap again where you sent just the rift. You're not going to have a pet until halfway through. Sometimes it just happens. It's an easy fix though. It only takes a couple of seconds. But instead of starting this pull with just a pet, just a rift, I would have spent 5 or 6 seconds just smiting to line them up. Okay, here we go again. The pet is very close by. The better thing to do here is wait for them to sync and get 1 pet per pull. I don't think you get a pet on either of these. Okay, we do just a rift here. Now when it comes to your, like if we harken back to the first thing we were talking about, your ratios, like where your spells are landing, they're in the right ratio, but you just need more of all of them. And so like that entire pull, we had loss on the pet. And this entire pull, I think you also hold the pet. And your decision here could be, well, boss is coming up next. I'm not going to have time to get the CDR on the pet. I think that's probably totally true and valid. But for the most part, oh, that's scary. You really want 1 pet per pull. So we, at least out of these 2 pulls, we could have cast pet on the first one. And then on this boss, just going to pause real quick. So we're tracking the timer of Molten Mace. This doesn't mean anything to track. This is the fixate on the tank. It has nothing to do with timing your heals. What we have to do is track the timer of Forge Weapon. They happen about every 20 seconds, I think, maybe 22 seconds. Every third is going to be empowered. So that's something you can either just know or you can track that attack too. I forget what it's called, but we want to track forge weapon and then know that every third is going to be hit harder. So in perfect world, we lead with a full rotation, then half rotation, and then the full rotation covers the every third attack. But we want a rift every forge weapon, and you fall off a little bit. So I know pretty quick into the fight, we have the first one. I would do an atonement ramp and party, and then get the pet rift out. Okay, so here comes the attack. This is the forge weapon, which we weren't tracking. You're doing your atonement ramp during the attack. This is late. The atonement ramp needed to happen first. Your pet and rift already needed to be out.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So your pet and rift are out. All 4 torments are done, or 3 torments are done. But I can tell you right now what's going to happen is since your pet and rift were late, or let's just say the rift, since the rift was late, you're not going to have it available in time for the next forge weapon. So the better thing to do is play the rift before the attack, not after. Okay, so here's the next forge weapon. Your rift isn't ready. It's like I was saying. You want this played before, so the heals are out during. Our window is longer than their attack. So the idea is you want it out ahead of time. It's not loss, but you want heals already happening by the time the attack begins. Okay, we got 5 torments. I'll take it. And this is about to be the fixate mechanic. Oh wait, I'm wrong. Sorry, it's this one. Yeah, so this is where I would want a full rotation. So knowing that this is the stronger attack with the double mechanic, I would be prioritizing smites because we really want the pet and rift out already. So in the small intermission we had, let's see, let's just back it up. Oh yeah, so you're giving single atonements to the party. What I would be doing is like a fiend pressing smite because we need the pet back to meet the rift for the next forge weapons. Okay, so here go the dots in party. It's going to be followed by the AoE. Yeah, so here's the AoE. Dots already in party. We still don't have the pet. So I'm tracking the right timers here. I think you would have seen, oh shit, this attack is 10 seconds away and my pet is 10 seconds away too. That means I need to smite a couple times. Going to Rapture to recover though. Okay, so this, so this is more of an intermission. So this is the attack you're tracking, but it has nothing to do with timing your heals. So you just played your spells, and there's nothing to heal. There is nothing to heal in this phase. So this, I think of it as a moment to kind of reset. I might also pre-ramp atonements, because right out of the fixate is another AoE in group. So I would ramp atonements. Oh yeah, well, so this, you're ramping atonements during your window. That's not something you want to do. You want to use a radiance instead, but this is all just kind of timed off. So a single atonement ramp is what you need, but you also want to not have played your pet and rift yet. So here comes the next AoE group attack.
5.
So a lot of times, even if you're doing your absolute best to time your heals, sometimes you still fall off by a couple seconds. And what you can do is if you ever fall off, that's when you can use barrier to like compensate.
2, 1. Dodge.
I would send just a rift here just to kind of close it out. Yeah, that's what you do. And you miss the collapse. So it's a picky comment, but you never really want the collapse to miss. I think it's very black and white loss if your rift collapses after mobs are dead. So know that it's something out there. You can have a macro, cancel aura, entropic rift, to cancel it at will. Okay, so let's see. We're going for a rotation here. I like that. Ooh. So this happens just sometimes. But it's something to note because it's something you need to focus on. So Where was it? So you're about to cast the Mind Blast. Yeah, so you triggered Mind Blast here, but you got interrupted. And I don't think you realized your Mind Blast did not cast, and you hit your penance anyway, your Dark Reprimand. So it happens sometimes, and it really sucks when it happens, but now you're missing that penance into the rift. I think it's because you just kind of didn't see. And it happens to me too, but yeah, you always just got to really pay close attention. Did it cast or not? Yeah, so now you cast it. So I think it dawned on you like, oh shit, it never got out. And it was just too late at that point. Oh yeah. So this too, this was my main reason for getting away from having your PI dependent on a focus target, because you lost your focus target. I don't think you've cast PI but once this whole dungeon. You kind of like put these training wheels on in a sense where it's a macro that's tied to focusing. I think you've already made this correction, but just approach casting PI like you would any spell. I wouldn't make it so complicated to put it in a focus macro. Just do click casting like you do for your other spells so you can give it to whomever you like, whenever you like. But yeah, because a lot of times, let's say, for example, what if the hunter's dead? You need a way to cast PI. And yeah, so even if you're just starting out, making sure you're playing this 100% of the time, I'd be okay if it's not well timed. Because, you know, here says coordinated assault. This would be your cue. Yeah, even if it's not timed well, I'd much rather see you just play this more and cast it regularly. Okay, so we should be able to set ourselves up for half rotation. Mind Blast is up. So this is a little bit picky of a comment, but you had loss on, yeah, you missed your collapse. And then also, your Mind Blast was ready for a couple of seconds before you played it. In a case like that, where I'm going for that second Mind Blast, you want to send it immediately. Followed by a Radiance, followed by a Penance.
Do you see it?
Okay, and I think this is where I realized the first time through that I wasn't recording. So this is going to be new for me. Well, only the second time. Rift her out. Yeah, you're casting way too many void. I'm so sorry, I keep coughing. You're casting way too many void blasts. And I'm not sure what's happening, but what I can guess here is you're doing 5 void blasts to get the penance to reset, but then you're sitting on the penance while you cast the radiance. So if you imagine if you replace a void blast with a radiance, you'll still get the penance back. Because right here, during the cast of the radiance, your penance is ready. So less void blasts, work in the radiance sooner, and you'll have less downtime on the penance. But I think you still get, yeah, you still get your 2 penance into the rift. And 6 torments. Pretty good. Okay. So you did just body pull, but that's not what I'm going to talk about. What I'm thinking going to this pull is it says 16 seconds, but you have to consider if you just smite, that's going to be more like probably 6 seconds total. So I would just open this pull with smiting to have my rift and pet sync up. Let's see what you do. Potentially maybe one more dot. Oof. Yeah, so the pet was literally almost there. It was 1 second away and you cast your Mind Blast. So yeah, I'll say it again. We always want to start a pull with the pet. We never want the pet on the latter half. So let's see how you recover. Yeah, too many void blasts. I would say do 3, not 5. Work on your radiance. That way you can get to your penance sooner.
Do you see it?
Also think of it this way, it's wasted CDR. If your penance is already ready and you're still casting void blasts, it'd be better just to reposition those Void Blasts to when the penance is back on cooldown. Okay, so we do have Pet and Rift. Let's see how you do this opener. Okay, I see 1 dot. Here goes Pet and Rift. Early Radiance, I like it. Let me watch that one again. I'm not sure you needed that second Radiance. I did. Rift Penance, Radiance. So casting this Radiance is all you need for the collapse. And I think you work 1 more in before the collapse. Yeah, you worked 1 more in. I would rather see this, is getting really picky, but this be a smite. That's better for your next pet. Hadn't really seen that though. You are over atoning quite a bit, but it's more single atonements. You're not really over radiancing. If anything, I think you're under radiancing. So that was a little bit different. Okay, so let's see. We're sending just a rift. That's okay. Potentially, I would send a pet and rift here rather than have this loss. But it's just going to die so quickly. Okay, and I would definitely send pet rift here. Let's see what we do. Okay, just a rift. So when in doubt, rift out. I think. Oh wow, you didn't see that frontal. So yeah, I forgot that, but there was a frontal there. You missed it. So you can always send a rift. When in doubt, rift out. Kind of like that. But in that pull in particular, I would send a pet too. And also, let me just see this. Did you have an audible cue for the frontals? So I really love a system of audible cues for things you have to dodge. So it's really important, I think, to hear the start of an attack. May it be a frontal or ground, like a circle on the ground. Let's see if you hear it. Because you might have, I think you've overplucked your bigwigs. Let's see what happens. No, there's no audible. So I think until you understand the attacks better, understand the dungeons better, it might be worth turning some things back on. I think you've fallen into this hole where you've valued a clean UI over anything, but you've plucked things that are valuable without you knowing it. So anytime there's a frontal, I love to hear the audible cue from bigwigs. Anytime there's a circle on the ground, I love to hear the audible cue. A lot of attacks, I just like to hear the audible cue. But again, yeah, turning off a lot is important. But things like hearing a frontal, that might have saved you there. So I think I've sent you my video for my bigwigs page by page. Happy to go over that with you. Honestly, happy to go over that with you. I think you've done a little too much. It might be worth revisiting and see if you could get back to just copying mine 1 for 1.
Do you see it? A stone to call forth the darkness.
Uh-oh. Also, potentially turn on party nameplates. I think those do help you as a disc priest. Here's something else you can do. Oh, good. I was going to say penance yourself. You get more speed. Yeah, so I feather, shield, and I penance myself on the feathers. Looks like you got that cycle down pretty good. That sucks though. They should have stood back and rezzed you. They let the pat kind of just walk into him. Okay, so we have Pet and Rift. Let's see how we handle. I would open with, yep, a couple single atonements just to get things going, recover some health, at least 1 dot, and then go. Okay, Okay, so that's what we did. Died real quick. I just noticed too, your nameplates are like flashing. I'm not sure what they're indicating, but generally I think things that flash should be used sparingly. Is it indicating they're in execute range? I'm not sure.
Do you see it? A stone to call forth the darkness.
Actually, it's not bad. I kind of like it. Were they changing color on execute? Let me see. So I would send... Okay, you're opening with Pet Rift. Let's just see how it goes. I think it's probably totally fine being an 8 right now. Ooh, you over-smited. So at least in that moment, you had torments to give. So it could have just been a mistake, and it happens to me all the time too. But when the totems are up, this is the only place I'm looking for the most part. Like I'm giving high attention to that area. So let's see, we have both torments. You got the penance torment, you got the death torment, and now I think we have a chance for one more penance torment. Yeah, we did, just barely. You could have gotten the 6th there, but you were smiting. Pyramiding? Oh, good. Yeah, just a half rotation is good here. Sometimes, well, let me say it differently. In higher keys, you can send a pet too. But I think on a lower level key, probably just the Rift is good. Oh, and then that. I'm glad I saw it here. I hope Cell can do it. I don't think it's a good idea to have heal absorbs fill a deficit, because it's going to give you like a pseudo read of what their health is. Let me back that up just a little bit. Yeah, I think Cell can do it. I think a better way to view them is an overlay just like the shields. So when it comes to bars, to have a little congruency between the like functions, I just think it's better. So I like everything starting from the left, growing to the right. I don't recommend having anything fill a deficit. It'd be much better to just see like the blue on black. Just a very clear read of the health. Because right now, like, I would say they look like they're 75% health. It's just like that's the first instinct I have. But really, they're sub 50, you know, and I think that's important, just not fill deficits. And the reason why I say you can probably send a pet there too is because this whole area right here, you can like smite that fire guy. And, okay, I would also prayer mending here. Okay, you have one out. I really like prayer mending. Thank you for that idea. People have gone crazy that I am trying it out. I think screw them. Okay, so your timing here is off too. So we want the Pet Death Rift Penance Radiance butting up to the Twilight Buffet. We want the bulk of the healing window after the attack. I guess mainly what we want is we want the collapse to happen after the attack. So let's see where your collapse falls. And also, I'm not sure where this is coming from. I would turn it off. We've talked about it before, but there are not weakars that can accurately track the API of a totem's duration. So I'm not sure where this red 2 and this white 6 are coming from, but you can see they're not accurate. So that says 2 to 4. This says 6 to 7. Is that an add-on? Is that a weakar that's putting timers on these? At the very least, it's redundant and it's also inaccurate. So I think it'd be better to remove those numbers and focus on the numbers associated with the totems. Let's see, I'm tracking your collapse. Okay, your collapse happened before the cast even. So the goal here is to time the collapse after this hit. So on pull, what you would have done is just waited a second. You'd play a couple of smites, maybe cast a shield on yourself, just thinking ahead, and just delay Pet Death Rift Penance Radiance butting up to the attack. So how do you do the second one? Okay, so it's a little premature. It might work out though. I'd cast my Radiance before the hit. Oh no! Okay, good. You got the Radiance? Ooh. That one though is something we've talked about in the past. I'd have to rewatch this video to see if you're doing it elsewhere. Just watch again. I don't think you are casting it only on yourself. Like some people, for example, they have a macro to cast Radiance at self, not knowing they can hit other people. I think this was just a case where it was a miss in your judgment call. But you cast, where is it? 2, 3, 4, 5. You're casting way too many Void Blasts. I would say only do 3, then the Radiance. That is a much stronger rotation. To get the 3 out of the way for the extension, go ahead and give your Radiance for coverage. But at least in this case, this Radiance you're casting on yourself is going to miss the tank. And being that y'all are about to be separated, you really want an atonement on him. So the better thing to do would be cast Radiance on any of your melee, because they're in the middle. So like all of these guys are here, it would have hit the tank. So what happens is here's your Radiance, 4 of 5 coverage. It's a little bit of a miss. Okay, boss down. Okay, we don't have Pet. We do have Rift. So the Pet is kind of far away, to be honest. So I would start with just a Rift, and that's what you do. Actually, you know, I might have spammed Smite a couple times, especially in a hierarchy.
See a stone to call forth the darkness. Knock.
Okay, we have a Pet in Rift. I would get on that dragon ASAP. Oh no. I hate it when I do that. You cast a Death accidentally. Oh, you didn't cast a Pet though. Okay, so you did just a Rift.
Knock.
That was a little bit tricky because they all went right when you went left. Potentially, if you had party nameplates on, you could have seen that the team was going the other way. I don't really call that a mistake. It was just kind of how things happened. But one thing I try and think of is like playing my Radiance before I know I'm going to have to detach from my team. So knowing there's hide mechanics there, I would make sure my Radiance is out before the hide, just to make sure there's coverage. Let me just replay that. Is that what you did? I know this was a timestamp you wanted me to look at.
Knock.
Let's just replay that whole section. Okay, so dragon's out. We're going for just a Rift. You can shield yourself ahead of those attacks. Yeah, and you have no atonements in party. So no one's really in danger at the moment. But being that we know we have to hide when the dragon's out, I like to kind of like, for one, you should track the timer on his cooldown so you can kind of see when that's coming. And I like to Radiance before I have to separate from my team. But it's neither here nor there, really. And then in these polls, when we talked about showing debuffs on your cell, this is one area if you want a specific example. So when these guys die, they leave a stacking debuff behind that amplify the damage from the single target attack. So what I'm trying to say is it's important to know if the debuff is on or if it's faded, because that does change how you approach healing the single target attack. So like this is it up here on you. I mean, you could, I guess, look up here and then know that's what it's for the party too. But it's better just to show debuffs on the nameplate. Well, I guess you have it here. I still think you should show debuffs on nameplates. I'm sorry, unit frames. Oh my god, what am I saying? Okay. hate it when that happens, and it's bound to happen sometimes. But when you fumble to find your target, it is important in these pulls to attack the big one. And you fumbled a little bit in bad times. Like what I would do now, literally as soon as I can with pulls, I try and find my target. And so like in a moment like this, when they're still kind of separated, it might have been easier. Also, one trick you can do to help find your target is just pan your camera up. Let me give you an example. So see how they're all stacking here? If you pan your camera up, they'll spread. You have to be careful doing that though, because you kind of lose sight of your feet. But because of the stacking here, potentially even, I forget what you call it, it's padding, it's vertical padding or something like that. You can make this a little bit less and that'll help your cause. Yeah, it sucks. You can't find him. Put that guy in danger. I would turn on the audible for that attack. I have every audible on for frontals and ground damage. It's a really good system to hear when those attacks begin. Okay, so we have Pet and Rift here. Let's see how you do it. You're single atoning. I would have gone for my target first. Single atoning the whole group here also doesn't mean much because these groups only have single target damage. Potentially I wouldn't have used Star there because I think by the time you got to Star, the other guys were dead. Star really only has any value if it hits this whole group. So let's see. I think you played Star and they were dead already. So Star on a single target mob, I really don't do that much. Oh, it hit. I'm sorry. Yeah, it hit. It might have not gotten great value, but it was better than single target. Okay, I'd be thinking to find my focus early. One of the big guys. Yeah, if you pan your camera up, it spreads them out a little bit. You waited for your pet with a couple of smites. I wouldn't have led with the Radiance there, but that's okay. I'd play Radiance now though. Okay, perfect. So, also something you can think about. So your Radiance was interrupted because you had to move. I also think about, in this pull, I know there's movement. I don't track the time of that cast, but I do have kind of an understanding of it. They're pretty quick. They're expected. So what I do is if I'm in a moment where I am standing still, I try and prioritize the cast. So I would get the cast of the Radiance out of the way, leaving myself things like Penance and Death to move, to press during the move.
Do you see it? A stone.
Yeah, because you were you had time to do the Void Blast. You had, I think, 3 of those, and then you tried the Radiance. I would have done the Radiance a little sooner, knowing that this is a moment that I'm not going to be able to stand still coming up. Okay, so I would cast a Palm here. Oh. Okay, so Void Surge. That is all we need to track, so I think we're on a good track here. What I would like to do before the boss pulled is have a Radiance, Harsh Discipline already procced, and then we really have to get the Pet Rift out ASAP.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Still toning.
AoE.
Okay, so that was late. Ooh, I understand. So the cast of the pet does nothing. The Mind Blast itself does nothing. The first death doesn't really do much. And the Penance is arguably not that valuable. So really we only get substantial healing after we empower the Rift with the first Penance. After we cast that second Radiance, once we get to the Void Blast, those are huge healing. What I'm trying to say there is casting the Pet Death Rift Penance after the damage has begun puts you in a position where you're kind of late. Yeah, and try and get those 4 spells out ahead of time a lot of the time. Now I would cover this with just a half rotation. Let's see how you do it. Just a Mind Blast. I don't think that was a good play of barrier. In a moment like this, we have either 5 of 5 taking damage from the Void Surge, or we only have 2 of 5 from that mechanic. The barrier is much better used when it's the 5 of 5 attack. That's fine. Let's see how you keep going. Potentially you could shield the tank here on those tank busters. Your cell is highlighting them for you. Okay, full atonement ramp, Pet Death Rift Penance. So, same thing as the first one. I would rather see you there 2 seconds sooner. This is a good place for a feather. And then for the pain sup though, I think it's fair to pain sup yourself if you're selected, but I think you were just guessing with the pain sup. I would use it more reactionarily. So if I'm picked, that's your oh shit button, but I would not have cast that right there. Or at the very least, cast it on someone that was picked. Boom. And we got IO. So good job on that one. I see a lot of improvement. I'm really loving the changes you made to your UI. It's so important that we see certain things, and it's also really important that we turn off certain things. So just food for thought. I think you have kind of overplucked your UI in a bad way. So consider bringing, and I know it's something we've already talked about, but consider kind of bringing some more elements back to your bigwigs, especially when it comes to timing our heals on bosses. Very, very important that we not only have a strong torment rotation, which you do, but that we time it better. So that's, I think, the biggest area of improvement for you is timing your spells, resetting your bigwigs to kind of serve a better purpose for you. And then, yeah, a couple rules of thumb. I think if you just kind of stick to these, that's all you need for like some pretty serious improvement. Always want a pet play start of the pull. We want to play the Void Wraith at the start, not the ladder. If you played it the ladder, you'll fall into this rhythm where you don't have it at the start of the next pull. And then we always want to cast a Radiance within the window. A better rule of thumb for that Radiance is either you can Radiance early in the window, so like Pet Death, Rift, Penance, then Radiance, or Pet Death, Rift, Penance, Blast, 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 Radiance. So instead of doing 5 blasts, do 3 plus a Radiance. Always making sure we're getting 2 Penance into the Rift. And I think your Torments are doing pretty good. And yeah, overall, I saw a lot of improvement here, but just a couple rules of thumb change. Play Radiance within a Rift. Play 3 Void Blasts instead of 5. I think you're getting a little too trigger happy on those. And then make sure we always have a pet at the start of a pull, especially if you're in a position where he's only a couple seconds away. It is better to delay. Play 1 Smite and wait for the pet to come back. But other than that, you're doing pretty good. Thanks for the lessons. I know I've been annoying you on Discord, but I think a lot of these things are pretty black and white, and these are things that I really want to impart on you, and I think you'll see a lot of improvement if you try them. Yeah, anyone who's watching, thanks for tuning in. Please check out my Metafy if you're interested in these private lessons. We have lecture style. We do video reviews, I think really important. I can also shadow your gameplay. I think that'll be a pretty cool new thing. And then look into supporting the channel. If you're interested in my UI elements, I would really appreciate the support. But until next time, Disc out.